Yes, welcome to the No State Project live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona, where it is a beautiful day. And after the show, I'm going out to enjoy it. Uh, it is, and apologize for missing the show on Wednesday, but that doesn't look like it was from my side. But everything's up and running. We're doing fine. We're streaming, I hope, fine. People start filing in. I appreciate those tuning in live and those who are doing the common sense thing and what I think is the ethical thing and staying inside, avoiding people if possible, or if you have to, keep your distance and wear a mask. And, a lot has happened, a lot to get to. The number, if you want to join me on the show, is Wilma Dick Fit. That is now that is a username. That kudos on that. That was I'm surprised that you think all the good usernames are taken, but the next guy that goes in wants to do that one. They're gonna have to do Wilma Dick Fit 2 and. So I'm Frank Rizzo 3 on Skype because there were actually 3 other people that were using Frank Rizzo at the time. So good night, everyone. I think, wow. The number is 7. Oh, I didn't put that in the show note. I apologize. Anyway, somebody can do that for me, but it's 717-275-8941. And that their passcode is 1233428. So you can also reach me at Skype at Frank Rizzo3, but definitely instant message me first, and I'll get you up on the big show. Want to talk initially about lawyers. What a wonderful group of people. Not all of them, being sarcastic, not all of them are your typical, shyster. I mean, in a broad, non-ethnic sense. Some are good people. I'm going to talk about one of them. I'm going to talk about some that are your typical, because as I put in the thumbnail for this particular broadcast here today, August 18th. I had it written down because I was going to do a show on the 15th. And so let's talk about a good lawyer. Very, very rare. But nobody can say that I am always insulting and putting lawyers down in the legal profession, because I talk very highly of people like Larry Krasner. If the evidence is there, if the praise is warranted, then yeah, then good. So the nursing home need to work with Marc more. I don't even. Maybe that's a way of getting me infected, I guess. I don't know. I know the audio should be fine, but for some reason it's still coming out in mono. I'm being recorded in mono, so I don't know why that is happening. It looks like it's set for stereo. Yeah, it's set for stereo, but yeah. I'm looking. Oh, maybe it's my microphone. Maybe something. Maybe I need another microphone because it's okay. Anyway. Oh, I was confused about the date and stuff. Yeah. Well, I looked down. I had it written. See if you can everyone see that? My detailed notes. Yeah, I'm a shill for George Soros, and this is how I do my show notes. This is the production value of being a shill for. He doesn't pay that well. He may be a multi-billionaire, but shilling for him doesn't pay the bills. You see, it's not so good, not so good. But hey, I'm happy to help bring about the new world order in any way that I can, and if I can, if I can make a couple of bucks at it, then hey, great. That's sarcasm, by the way. I'm sure somebody will take that out of context. So let's talk about initially it's a bad situation. I mean, I don't think I've spoken about this before, but it was a horrific situation. And what it shows is that, at least here, there was like a 10-to-1 ratio of you are really, really bad typical lawyer. The win at all costs. Who gives a damn about candor towards the court? Who cares about the truth? Who cares about facts? Who cares about this sacred procedure? It doesn't matter. So there was one attorney involved, and and I've worked with him with cases before. But this particular one, there's something that has happened a few times with people that I've worked with, and it's something that I have not seen before. I don't think it's just a matter of, well, Marc's a non-lawyer. He's one of these effing, anarchist over here. He questions the system. He asks questions that we can't answer. And even according to Gary Murphy, in the IRS in Wyoming, not that, my questions, my calls are highly embarrassing to the agency. But there have been a few times when I've worked with people and they've been attacked, whether before they were working with me or during, where part of the deal for the IRS, the feds, to leave them alone and let them get back to a semi-normal life is that they can have no communication with me, period. Now, I've mentioned the incredible escalation in Utah about 4 or 5 years ago. And still no one's been able to make direct contact with them so that I could, at least through a neutral third party, find out what the hell happened. And something happened in Connecticut a number of years ago. And this individual was already under attack, and he had come to me for help. Now, as I have done, and I guess, I guess it wasn't something I always broadcast, but I did mention that I did work with lawyers, depending on the situation. And of course, it had to be a lawyer that I trusted, a lawyer that I respected. And so since I have such little respect, and I know I'm being monitored, I know, I get it. And because I actually do have such little respect for the legal profession, because they've demonstrated how grossly dishonest that they really are. I don't work with too many, I don't. We've had lawyers where they said to a friend of mine, he was going through a divorce. He wanted to do a deposition, which is clearly allowed by the rules. The judge wouldn't allow it. He had to get a lawyer. And even though he told the lawyer, you are not to file a notice of appearance, you're not representing me, you're just going to be a mouthpiece for the deposition. I already have the questions. Everything's already done. I just need you to be the freaking mouthpiece. Well, the moment she took his cash retainer, she had the paralegal file a notice of appearance, and she refused to do the deposition. So I've got a lot of experience with lawyers. And I could say that in my experience, the overwhelming majority are horrible, horrible people. Horrible people. But this libertarian is a good guy. I worked with him a number of times. And now this is an IRS case. And I did report on the show years ago that I had spoken with the IRS agents at the time. They had come to his house, and he had his cell phone, and he put it on speaker, and they knew they were being recorded. They knew they were talking to me. They didn't have a shred of evidence to support their claims again. Not a sliver. And they didn't care. They don't care. They don't need it. They don't need it. They know they don't need it. They know that they can lie and get away with it. And that's what happened here. But they decided it wasn't just going to be, well, Marc's not a lawyer. We don't give a damn about the third-party authorization over here. Even though there's an attorney of record, a state bar licensed and also admitted to a practice in the federal court. So he's got his Connecticut state law license. He is a licensed attorney. I know license is a colloquial. I know. But he's admitted to the state bar in Connecticut in good standing. He was the attorney of record when the IRS attacked. They knew he was the attorney of record. So let's see. I'm not even, you don't even have to consider my actual part of this, okay? That's not the important part of the story. What's important is this guy fell off the face of the earth. Gone. Nobody could contact him. His lawyer could not get in touch with him. So I, in desperation, trying to find out what the hell happened to this guy, because you got to figure, okay, he's in jail. In jail. So I was eventually able to reach the U.S. attorney for this district in Connecticut. And I said, look, is Mr. X, has he been indicted? Is he in jail? Nobody knows where the hell he is. Nobody will speak to us. Nobody. And he said he can't confirm or deny. You know that. He can't confirm or deny that he's been indicted. Now, I've already searched publicly. There's no public record that he's been indicted. There is nothing on the U.S. Attorney's website. There is nothing publicly about him being arrested. There is nothing. I mean, the guy just fell off the face of the earth. And his own attorney getting in touch with the U.S. Attorney's office, they would not communicate with his own attorney. So whatever you think of me, that's got nothing to do with this. We're talking strictly about the United States Attorney's Office in Connecticut, who wouldn't communicate with attorney of record. The man was indicted and they did not disclose that, and he was arrested. They would not disclose that to his own attorney. Now, I'm sure there's going to be someone saying, that I just don't have the details right. Oh, I do. And you could be skeptical of, it's like the corona stuff, Mark. It's all hearsay. How do we know the U.S. Attorney, the Deputy Attorney General said that? It's hearsay. Yeah, it is. It is. And maybe one day, if the show still goes on, I can have this attorney actually testify and give his what he would be hearsay to what the U.S. Attorney told him. So, and to me, that is just more proof. Can you imagine? You have a state bar, a member of the state bar in good standing, who's the attorney of record, and the U.S. Attorney indicts you and arrests you. And they block all communication. Your own attorney. So again, if you're one of these who thinks, attorneys are necessary, some are good, some are bad, and you think the legal system, yeah, it's good and bad, but it's the best way. There's no way in the world that given those facts, you could turn around and say, well, Mark Stevens is just an idiot and that's why they did it. It's got nothing to do with me. This is what the U.S. Attorney's Office and what U.S. attorneys typically do. Stephen Myrie is not an aberration. Stephen Myrie is the rule. But even Stephen Myrie communicated with the Bundys when they were indicted. Their attorneys knew. I can't even imagine how the stress level, okay, of being indicted by the feds. But then you can't communicate with your own lawyer? Oh, jeez. Oh, my gosh. So is it, what did people going to shield for the U.S. Attorney's Office? Well, things are happening. It's complicated. If you went to law school, Mark, you'd understand that it's part of the process to cut your attorney out. If you'd gone to law school like a normal person, come on. Come on over here. If you were a normal person who went to law school, or you were a court reporter and you were in court every day talking to lawyers, you would know that there's nothing wrong with indicting somebody and not telling counsel. That's just that. If you went to law school, you freaking idiot. You would know. Your attorney has no right to know if you've been indicted. What's wrong with you? Oh, do I have a citation for that? We'll get your own lawyer to explain it to you. So that's that. So here you've got an example of a lawyer that I would trust and that I worked with who is completely cut out of the process. Is it fair to say, well, Mark, you were involved in that? Well, even under Connecticut law, I was being supervised by an attorney, so it's not like it was UPL what I was doing. So what excuses are there? And so what did come out eventually through a third party was very, very limited information because the guy didn't want to go back to jail. But he was able to have someone get to me and let me know part of the deal. He could never communicate directly with me ever again. And it's sad to not have to be able to, not be able to speak to somebody that I work with, but hey, that's the price you got to pay. I mean, if it means going back to your family, then abbafango de Mark Stevens, Sono spiacente, but abbafango, ciao. It's got to be, that's a small price to pay. Not just, okay, it's not speaking to me. So why they cut the attorney out, what kind of legal basis they may have had, it ultimately doesn't matter. It doesn't. Because when you look at when they get, because that, not to minimize what happened, that was probably one of the worst things that ever happened to this man's family, and probably the worst thing that will happen short of one of them dying. That's bad. Well, we're going to indict you, and you're not going to communicate with your attorney. Wow. Holy gee, I want to see one of the people who can't stand my work. I want to see one of them try and in good faith, try to make an argument justifying the feds cutting out your own attorney. Again, he was a member of the bar in good standing, attorney of record. Just to try to put in, as stressful as it is, just imagine you're being indicted and that you're going to be arrested and you can't talk to your lawyer. Wow. But the U.S. Attorney's Office has done far worse. I know one that drove a woman to suicide. Oh, but the lawyer in Kansas, that's not keeping him up at night that a woman actually committed suicide because even though the magistrate, a federal magistrate, had ordered the release of her sick husband because he was very, very ill. And that the U.S. attorney literally ran out of the courtroom to go upstairs to the supervising judge and get the order reversed. And that the stress caused this woman to kill herself. Oh, he's up at night because I'm sitting here talking to 47 people. Yeah, about phone gold. Yeah, I tell you, there should be a motion for that. It's just I'm a fungal, that's what I think. Again, this is not to minimize what happened in Connecticut because that was awful. In fact, the woman killing herself was in Connecticut also. I think it was the same U.S. Attorney's Office, the same district that drove Aaron Swartz to kill himself. They've got quite a record of driving people to suicide. But you got Alexander Acosta, who gave this sweetheart deal to Jeffrey Epstein. And not just to him. I mean, Epstein, he didn't go to prison like he should have for the rest of, well, he actually did go to prison the rest of life. But he didn't get life in prison like he should have. They had a non-prosecution agreement, where he pled guilty to state charges in Florida. Alexander Acosta, if you forget, and I don't think we should ever forget this, Alexander Acosta was the U.S. attorney who oversaw the deal, the non-prosecution deal against Epstein, and he gave blanket immunity to unnamed co-conspirators. I mean, usually you go for the co-conspirators so that you can get the main guy. It's just like when they talk about in the Godfather 2. He's like, it was a button man. Well, the boss, has, he wants you to push a button on a guy. You know what I mean, Senator? No, I don't know what you mean. Come on, push a button. So they go after the button man because they want the Don, the capa du tutti du capi. They want the guy, they want the boss of all bosses. So, but here, instead of going after the perceived ringleader and using the co-conspirators to bring him down, because he wasn't the ringleader. I think that's pretty obvious. Epstein wasn't the ringleader. Epstein was just a cog. Maybe he was a button man. You push a button. I tell you. So what they did, this is what I was going to report a few days ago. This is Reuters.com. Yeah, I know you're probably saying, yeah, fake news, Reuters, fake news. All right. Could be. But you can look up the court cases. You can verify. Well, the court case could be fake, too. I don't know. Alexander Acosta could be fake. There may not even be a guy called Alexander Acosta. It's just an actor. He does look a lot like the actor who does Ron Paul, and then Ron Paul's really not active anymore, so they get, he does Alexander Acosta. They're about the same height, so kind of figures out, right? So what they're saying here, now, for those, back last year, a federal judge held that the non-prosecution order or agreement, that this was not legitimate, that this had violated federal law, because they did not disclose this deal to the victims. So it gets appealed, and the federal courts appealed. This is going back to Tuesday, upheld a 2007 deal between federal prosecutors and Jeffrey Epstein that allowed the financier. He was a child molester. He was a child trafficker who also did financier work, apparently. Well, you have direct personal first-hand knowledge of that? Allowed the child molester, the child trafficker, to avoid federal sex trafficking charges, finding it did not violate his victim's rights. It's not a result we like, but it's the result we think the law requires. A 2-1 panel of the 11th Circuit U.S. The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals wrote in its opinion, which overturned a ruling by a federal judge last year, that the agreement violated the Federal Crime Victims' Rights Act. Epstein was arrested on new sex trafficking charges last year and was found hanged in an apparent suicide while in jail awaiting trial. Paul Cassell, a lawyer for Courtney Wild, the woman who petitioned to overturn Epstein's non-prosecution deal, said he would ask the full circuit court to rehear the case, which is en banc, saying that the ruling, quote, leaves victims like Ms. Wild without any remedy, end quote. Cassell said the ruling would set a bad precedent for victims' rights in other cases, and that upholding Epstein's deal would shield co-conspirators from prosecution. Yes! It's Captain Obvious, of course. We all know. Shield co-conspirators from prosecution, because my gosh, can you imagine the names in there? Well, we already know some. Clinton, Dershowitz, Trump. That's why you got to get your federal court stacked before you're out of office. Kind of like what Mr. Authoritarian is doing now, where he wants to what's the word? He wants to get rid of the Congress, suspend Congress so that he can get his appointments. Because this is going en banc, and it's most likely, if it's either way, it could be going to the Supreme Court. So here, yeah. Before reaching his deal with federal prosecutors in Florida, Epstein was faced with potential. See, that's where they hinged the ruling on the word potential federal indictment for sexually abusing dozens of girls as young as 14 between 1999 and 2007, directing others to abuse them. Thinking Alan Dershowitz has been accused. Whoa, I no contact. It's a complete lie. It's a total lie. I had a massage, but I was fully dressed. Well, I had a massage on my shirt. It was just a massage. So here's a guy that was instrumental in coining the phrase "test-a-lying." It was just a massage. Well, you're changing your story there, Alan. Directing others to abuse them and paying employees to bring victims to him, according to court filings. However, the prosecutors agreed not to pursue against Epstein in exchange for his 2008 guilty plea to Florida state prostitution charges. Epstein was sentenced to 13 months. 13 months in jail after that plea, but allowed to leave regularly to go to his office. Again, he was facing indictment for trafficking and abusing girls as young as 14. And he was given 13 months. If he had a damn ounce of pot, they would have thrown a book at him and he would have been in for more than at least 5 years. And he was regularly allowed to leave to go to his office. U.S. District Court Judge Kenneth Mara in West Palm Beach, Florida, ruled in February 2019 that the deal was illegal because Epstein's victims were not told about it. However, the judge ruled last September that the victims could not collect money damages. The 11th Circuit on Tuesday called the facts of the Epstein case, quote, a national disgrace, but said the victims' rights law did not apply because Epstein was never actually charged. Circuit Judge Kevin Newsom wrote the 2-1 majority opinion. Circuit Judge Frank Hull dissented, saying federal law did give victims, quote, the right to be treated with fairness and with respect, end quote, even before charges were filed. Many women who said they were victimized by Epstein are now seeking compensation from his estate, which is administered in the U.S. Virgin Islands probate court. So they're going to get away with it. I have no doubt, the en banc will either be refused, or if they do hear it, they're just going to uphold it. And I think it will ultimately be upheld by Supreme Court because now you got Brett Kavanaugh on there. So, and Clarence Thomas. These are guys where allegations of sexual abuse are never true against Republicans, regardless of how many convictions there are against Republicans. No, they're only true if it's against Democrats. And yes, I think Biden is a POS. Was that an insult? Yeah, I think. I'm sorry, but spia gente. Yeah, tutti. It's warranted. It's deserved. The guy supported he was the main architect for the Patriot Act. He was one of the biggest cheerleaders for the Iraq war hoax. So, POS. That's what he is. Like most politicians at that level are. So, once again, see, because the rules do not apply to the rich and powerful. If the rich are held accountable, most of the time it's with a fine. A fine that might be a lot of money for you and me, but not a lot of money for them. So, yeah, they'll get away with it. So even if it goes to the Supreme Court, they'll get away with it. And in saying that it's a wrong decision isn't a conspiracy theory. It's not, you're just not willing to accept it. That's a dissenting opinion. That's taken and agreeing with a sitting federal appellate judge. This is not a unanimous ruling. So hopefully that does help if they're going to get an en banc rehearing on that. Depends on how many names. See, the judges probably have a pretty good idea on who the unnamed co-conspirators are. And if there's one thing you could be sure about, politicians know which side their bread is buttered. So, yeah. What is my aunt used to say? Don't crap in your own yard. They know better. They may have a lifetime appointment, but judges have been impeached and removed. Not too often. And judges have been actually prosecuted and convicted. Not too many. Not too many, which is really unfortunate. But especially with prosecutors, because at least judges have gone to jail. Prosecutors, what they've done on the job, even if it wasn't related. I reported last year there's a prosecutor accused of sexual abuse. Not a charge. Who's gonna charge? You know, the office is they're actually gonna bring an indictment against one of their own. Really, prosecutor? I like to think. I want to think that Larry Krasner in Philly, 9 exonerations last time I reported. 9 exonerations. I'd like to see 9 indictments against those lawyers, those prosecutors that either quit or were fired by Krasner when he came in. But we will see. I again, he is a lawyer, but he's got a track record here. Remember, he wasn't a career prosecutor. He was a career defense attorney. He had seen just about enough abuse from these lawyers. Firsthand seeing what the prosecution's office was getting away with. So he got elected to clean it up. And one of the first things the man did was 31 prosecutors were gone. I would say there should be 31 indictments or at least misdemeanor complaints. Put every one of them in prison if they were part of the pattern of abuse, of withholding exculpatory evidence, Brady material, and knowingly putting innocent people in jail. So, but we'll see. We'll see what Larry does. The more important aspect is that the innocent people get out of jail. So he's got 9 people out. So hopefully we'll see. We shall see. Now we get to some of the more ugliness. I know it's kind of it's starting to be a regular thing. Not a lot, but you know, even regulars thinking, "Oh gosh, Marc is drinking the Kool-Aid." I even had a couple of people. Again, it's only a few that I'm fully embracing martial law. The thing is, when people are saying things like that, that is clearly not what I'm talking about. It just reminds me of this lawyer in Kansas who's just biting his nails and pulling his hair out and losing sleep and labeling me a sovereign citizen. It's the same thing. You're just straw manning and trying to make it look like I'm something that I'm not, which is what came out in the Sky chat, that some people think that I am some kind of leader in something. I don't get that. Marc, you have been part of or a leader of something huge. No, I'm really not. And this whole thing of people thinking I'm drinking the Kool-Aid and just accepting the official story like a good little sheep. The official story at one point was that it was a Democrat hoax. I didn't believe that for a second. And it's just a hoax. A hoax. Come April, it will just magically disappear. So I didn't buy the official story hook, line, and sinker. That's ridiculous. Again, for those who doubt, the official story from the White House was it was a Democrat hoax. They had the impeachment hoax. Well, first they had the Mueller Russia hoax. That didn't work. Then they had the impeachment hoax. That didn't work. So now they have the coronavirus hoax. That was the official position of the United States federal government. So there was quite a jump in the deaths. It looked like a week ago we had 395,000 cases. That has not doubled, but there are 690,000 cases now. So it's bad. And we had 12.7 reported dead. And now, a week later, it's 35,000 and change dead. And I've mentioned on the show, I know these numbers are skewed one way or another. Is the trend skewed? And I'm catching some heat from regulars that because I'm comparing some things to Alex Jones. Well, none of us believe Alex Jones, but that's the idea is that every single thing that happens is a government conspiracy. It's all the globalists. That's what I mean by that. And Alex Jones is kind of the cheerleader for that. It's like every single negative thing that happens in the world, it's a part of a global conspiracy. Is that true for some things? Of course. Of course. Is the invasion of Afghanistan? That was a concerted global conspiracy. Well, I don't know if it's global, but that was a number of governments. That was a conspiracy that you can prove between the United States and England. You can show that was on the false pretenses. You can show that the media was cheerleading, but it wasn't all of them in the media, because a lot of media had reported prior, there are no weapons of mass destruction. You had mainstream media. There were no weapons of mass destruction. And you could even go to the BBC, you could see that. So there were still in the mainstream media, you had both. You had obviously shilling for the Pentagon. No doubt about it. No doubt. Not all of them did that. There were reports in the mainstream media. There are no weapons of mass destruction. Was it Hans Blix and others? There are no weapons of mass destruction. This is wrong. It all came out that they were all correct. They all knew that. So that's if you want to say, a global conspiracy there. Going into Afghanistan, going into Iraq. Obviously, it's most of what I was talking about there. You can even see, so yes, those things are real. They do happen. I said before, the Gulf of Tonkin, that was fake. It led to the massive escalation of the war in Vietnam. The war was real, but it was a false flag. So those things, yes, those are true. But the Alex Jones type is that everything negative that happens, every big negative thing that happens, it's all a global conspiracy. I'm not necessarily that Alex Jones is in this, but you have the groups that think it's all the Jews, that there are a handful of Jews causing all this. I've been accused of being a shill for George Soros. Longtime listeners of the show, I'm just a shill for George Soros. That's insane. That claim is absolutely just bonkers insane. I don't even know words for how stupid and crazy that is. Again, this is the extent of my equipment. Does everybody realize the budget that does not exist for this show? I'm bewildered by that. There are experts on both sides saying that one group saying that now that came some Dr. Judy, Dr. Faust, he's Fauci, he's a Jesuit. It's the Vatican, and that a doctor who claims that vaccines cause autism and her career was destroyed by that. She's saying it's all a friggin' hoax. It's just the flu. And there are experts and studies and that have actually mapped out the genome. Where I saw part of a video and I didn't have the time to finish it because a quick Google search showed that this doctor was wrong. They have been able to isolate and replicate the coronavirus. They were able to map the genome. I mean, they know they can see. They know what it looks like. But then there are doctors who say that that's not true. They only took genetic material and they don't know what kind of genetic material. They took it from one person and they got this and you the gold standard and you didn't do this and you did. But then there were 1,000 or more doctors saying the complete opposite. So I don't know absolutely certain. There are some things you can know for certain. The earth is not flat. Get over it. It's not flat. You can observe it. You can, math. There's this thing like math that the Greeks and the Phoenicians, the Egyptians that they had for 3,000 years. 3,000 years. And here, it's not the flu. They can identify the influenza virus. They can identify the virus. You have a damn microscope. You can see these things under a microscope. They can show that they're different. And they were able to isolate it in Korea, as an example, and they were able to replicate it. Now, there is evidence that I think is credible that it does have, it can mutate. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. J-Back is saying stats. Corbett did a video on that. They're padding like crazy. Hospitals get paid $13K for a COVID patient and $39K if they're put on a ventilator. I don't know if that's true. So yes, numbers could be padded, but are they padding the trend? And how much are they padding it? It's also Corbett doesn't believe that man-made pollution has any effect on climate. So I think he does some great work, but I don't agree with him on everything. And that's something I'd have to see what the sources are that they are spending, they're putting so much money. And yeah, we know that based on how many people are dying, that they can't always right on the spot make a decision for the death certificates. I know that came out in Minnesota. But what's actually happening on the ground, and when you have more context, it starts to look a lot less conspiratorial. And I've said that on the show as a skeptic for years. I'm gonna just save some money here on the budget. It looks like we're not going to have any calls this show, so I might as well save the money on the budget. Maybe we'll get more calls on the Wednesday show. But certainly something very unusual is going on. And I certainly don't want to be lumped in with these people in Michigan, that they'll liberate Michigan. There's no martial law. And I know that's the whole thing. They're going to take the guns. No, Mark, the guns is just a distraction from the globalists. They want to destroy the economy and own everything, and everyone will be at that. Yeah, well, they already had that. They already had it. So go see Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes from 1976 talking about the influenza pandemic. I'd like that, that might be something to look into. And so what is getting traction on Facebook is that what I mentioned on a couple of shows where during the 1918 pandemic, I guess maybe that was all fake too, even though you have pictures of bodies piled up. those weren't really those were just Germans that were, it was German. It was just like World War II. There was no concentration camps, and if there were concentration camps, there were Germans in there, not Jews and gypsies and homosexuals and people with Down syndrome and whatnot. But in 1918, what they did after the war, they would, most cities continued to self-isolate and wear the mask and to keep their distance. They started, but not Philadelphia. Not Philadelphia, home of Frank Rizzo. Frank effing Rizzo. I don't know if he's Paisan or not, but maybe he's just Italian. He wasn't a Siciliano. But they decided in Philadelphia, about Fangul to we're going to celebrate the end of the war. And more people died in the next few months from the flu than died in the war. Well, how do you know that anyone died in the war? I mean, come on. Yeah, come on. Hey, how stupid are you, Mark? You used to be a skeptic. Now you're believing that World War I actually happened? What the hell's wrong with you? It was all fake. It was all fake. It was done in a sound studio in Hollywood or New York at the time. How do you know World War I even happened? Come on, give me a break. Give me a break. Yeah, drinking a Kool-Aid, you stupid son of a... What the hell's wrong with you? You used to talk about anti-government and anarchy and stuff like this. What the hell is this crap that World War I happened? There was no flu pandemic. Polio was fake. Polio was fake. Oh, you know somebody who had polio and still lives to this day? Wasn't polio, it was something else. It was just the flu. Just the flu. So, and that's why, look, and I love history. That's why I love somebody like, oh gosh, I have to think of the name. But he wrote a series of books, and one is the True American Revolution, or the First American Revolution. And he uses a lot of sources, but he also goes out of his way. Well, I guess because he's a legitimate historian, not Alex Jones or someone like that, not just someone who reads things on the internet. He's an actual trained historian. And that even you have to look at the source of the document. And he goes through and he shows that based on historical evidence and newspapers and all this, that the give me liberty or give me death speech, there was nothing recorded on that speech, which took place, I think, in 1774, 1775, in that area. Remember, the only way to record something back in 1775 was to transcribe it. This kind of chicken scratch that you can see over here, right? What someone's hearing. Now, this is a speech that's going, it was pretty impassioned. Well, the person who actually reported this, what was said, it was not transcribed. The only surviving, if there was any before, remember, we're looking back on history. Back then it was just another meeting of the legislature. Okay, it was just another group of politicians. I mean, I think it happened even in a church, and it was this guy who said he was there, and it was like 25, 30 years later. What his recollection was 3 decades later. So how much of that speech can we say really was said? Certain things may have stuck with him. Sure. Give me liberty, give me death. That is such a powerful statement. Maybe he did say it, but you have to weigh it with the fact that it was 30 years before. And there were no newspapers. There was nothing in the newspapers of the time that reported this speech. So context Yeah, context really, because initially you can hear something. Oh, doctors in Minnesota being ordered to say that everyone's COVID-19, whether they are or not. Get more context. Is it really that simple? You got to have more context so that you can understand. Well, maybe it's the context that I read about was because of how many are dying and how they don't have enough people to care for everybody. They're stretched thin in a lot of places like New York, that until you're able to do a formal, this is what we're going to, say this, that doesn't have nearly the conspiratorial or the gravity of the, the situation. Not nearly as evil. It's definitely not evil. I don't even think it's evil. And this is coming from somebody who sees government as a criminal organization, and I got the facts to prove it. But we have to look at context. Not every single thing they do is bad. Now, the manner in which it's paid for, yeah, that's bad. But that doesn't mean that every service and everything they do is bad. And it doesn't mean that every single thing coming out of a politician's mouth is a demonstrable lie. Now, if you're talking about the impeached president, yeah, almost every sentence that comes out of his mouth is an easily provable lie. But he is the exception. Most politicians are a lot more sophisticated. Obama, was a hell of a lot more sophisticated and intelligent individual. The man knew how to talk, still lied, but it wasn't a fire hose of lies. So I think it absolutely be a skeptic, but we've got so much information at our fingertips for the time being. So when somebody is giving a list of things that he's doing and saying that these are his arguments as a doctor, why the COVID doesn't even exist, you can just do a Google search and you can get contradictory evidence. Mark, what's wrong with you? The Jews control the media. You're only going to get information that supports the official story. Well, that's not true. One, the Jews don't control everything. There's no evidence of a Jewish conspiracy. Gosh, I hate that one. And it's just like this thing that people think, the globalists, they're out to get me. No, they don't give a damn about me because I have no social power. Doesn't I mean, come on. I mean, Elvis, John Lennon was a problem because he had social power. I don't. I am not. It's a very simple explanation. Some lawyer in Kansas is upset with me. He's not being paid by George Soros. He's not being paid by the deep state. Yes, I love this. So the explanation that with the fewest amount of assumptions, Occam's razor. That's what I love. Trump, he's going to drain the swamp. He's talking about how, as president, he has total absolute power and wants to suspend the Congress. I'm using the wrong word, but he wants to suspend the Congress and have absolute power. I accept no responsibility at all, yet I have absolute power to have no responsibility. Yep. All right. Well, hey, we got through another show. Didn't take any calls, but that's all right. We covered a lot of ground there. I am looking at alternative, other explanations of this, guys. I just went through. I watched as much as I could I watched a little bit of Dr. Judy's thing, and I generally turn off when someone says that vaccines cause autism. Please. But I gave more time to this Dr. Kaufman, I think it was, and I just started. I would stop the video and I just Google search and I would look. I would try to verify what he was saying, and he's dead wrong that they only took samples from one single person, and then they didn't know the genetic material because you got a lot of different genetic material in the lungs. They didn't know. No. So I am looking. If I don't find it compelling, I don't find it compelling. It doesn't mean that I'm not a skeptic, and it doesn't mean I'm not an anarchist. It doesn't mean that I'm a shill for George. Why would George Soros want to pay me when I have less? I average view maybe 1,000, and he's going to find me or have his people find me. Well, you got to get this Marc Stevens guy. He will convince enough people. Are you kidding me? Again, got to follow the evidence. And that's what I'm doing here. Checkpoint. But do you have a vested interest in the medical industry? I do not. Do I look? Again, this is my equipment. I'm a very upfront guy. I mean, this is how I do the show. Come on, vested interest. I had to turn off the call line because I may not be able, if I kept it on, I wouldn't be able to afford. I wouldn't be, I'm the PewDiePie of energy. Yeah. I have 100 subs compared to his 100 million. But I don't have a vested interest. I'm looking at the evidence. I'm looking at different people, different sources. And I treat everything with kid gloves. And I just don't find it compelling. And yeah, look, I already know there's going to be a handful of people saying he doesn't believe that vaccines cause autism. I'm out of here. All right, fine. I don't, there's contradictory evidence. And the guy who actually started that, it was discredited that he falsified the data. So yeah. Yep. I don't know what to tell you. I still wholeheartedly, embrace skepticism, and to think, hey, after they burned all those 5G towers, I was going to talk about that. I had something up about that, but they've been burning 5G towers in England, and I don't know if it's been reported other places. They're still getting cases. The fact that they have cases of COVID where there is no 5G. Gosh. That's just yeah. I appreciate everyone tuning into the show. I do. If you disagree with what I say on the show, again, it's fair game for criticism. Call. Hope maybe Wednesday we'll get more callers. Not so much today. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of the day. I suggest you do the same. If you're going to go out, keep your distance, wear a mask, and wash your hands pretty often. And hopefully the numbers are right and things are starting to level off. Doesn't mean we stop taking the precautions, but it means things are improving. So that what we're doing is working in some places. So till we are live again on Wednesday. Salud.